All right, friends. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about payroll. And the reason I'm going to hit this hard and quick is because it is one of the most expensive when it comes to our budget, it's one of the largest drains on our finances is the payroll. You got to be able to pay payroll. You're going to want to pay yourself, and you're going to be able to have to pay your therapists, your psychological examiners, your psychologists, your med managers, which could be a psychiatrist or a psych nurse, and you still got to pay billing official, and you still got to pay scheduling officials. All right, keep that in mind. That doesn't even begin to really cover all the other expenses like your mortgage or your rent or your lights and all the other stuff that you're doing, any kind of other marketing expenses. It's a lot. We're going to go into detail about some of these budgeting things, and I want to help you with that later. Specifically, I made some notes for myself today. How are we going to pay our people is pretty important. So what can we do really? There's two main functions when it comes to taxes. One is the W-2 employee, and the other is the 1099 contractor, the independent contractor. I'm going to tell you that in almost every single case, I had W-2 employees. And the reason why, they're just easier to manage, okay? Now, granted, there are some benefits to having the 1099 contractors, but I'm just going to give this to you super quick and easy. Anybody that's in your office 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are, day after day, if they've got your equipment, they're doing what you tell them to do, and they're the same day after day, and it's consistent day after day, they're going to probably be a W-2 employee. So that's your schedulers, your billers, and your therapists. Now, the hired gun category, which could be a psychiatrist who's also a psychiatrist at 2 or 3 different hospitals or whatever else, or a nurse practitioner who might be a nurse practitioner at a different hospital or a different clinic. You do not have the same employer, I hate to say rights, you don't have the same employer responsibility with these people that you do your W-2 people. There's never going to be a non-compete for the 1099. You should have a non-compete for your W-2 employees. You don't want them taking the information that you've taught them and going somewhere else. And then ultimately your trade secrets. And there are valuable things in every business that you don't want people to know about. Those trade secrets make you unique and are worth protecting. So again, a non-compete is good for your W-2 employees. You're probably not going to have a non-compete for your 1099s because you can't afford to keep these people for 1 or 2 hours a day. And that's usually what a med manager starts off doing, 1 or 2 hours. You don't want them to be on the payroll for 8 hours a day and they're only seeing clients. They only got like 5 clients. It would be exorbitantly expensive to put them on a salary. And then ultimately, it just drains your budget all the way down to nothing. So what do we do when it comes to hiring people and paying them? I'm always one where I want to give them the opportunity to make the most amount of money that they can. All right. I'm going to hit it hard and quick. Take notes because you're going to want to ask me questions on payroll. All of my schedulers and billers started out at about $10 an hour and quickly went to $12 an hour upon completing training and then got up to $15 an hour pretty quickly. So from $10 to $15 an hour, you're training them, getting them right, encouraging them, and so forth. By the time they are good, and when I say good, they are an expert at what they do and they aren't making mistakes, they should be around the $15 an hour category. I like to pay people a little bit more than what anybody else pays them, and here's why. If you pay somebody $10 an hour, then anybody offering $11 an hour is likely to take your employee. And there you are without your well-trained scheduler, your well-trained biller. Understand the market rate for a scheduler and a biller. Now, again, can you hire somebody that has no high school graduate, no diploma, no GED? Yes, you can do that. You can train them to be a scheduler and a biller. I typically liked hiring people that at least had a GED or the high school diploma. They might even have a little bit of college. They should maybe, in some cases, have some other retail experience or on the phone experience. Okay, so that's always helpful. But the bottom line is that you want to keep people you train. So you got to pay them more than whatever the competition is going to be willing to put up to steal them from you. I hope that makes sense. They're always going to be W-2 employees. I hope that makes sense. We're always going to try to give them plenty of time off so they don't get burned out. I hope that makes sense. Then you got to figure out how many hours you're going to be open and how many hours you're going to be manning the phone. They could be two different things. For example, I manned the phones personally after 8 o'clock at night. And here's why. Nobody calls after 8 o'clock at night. I'm the one that in case of a crisis, I always picked up my phone if somebody called, and I'm always, hey, this is Curtis with such and such company, and I'm here to help you. What's going on? And I knew it was going to be a crisis appointment because it filters through our phone system as such. So whether you got Grasshopper or you have RingCentral, whatever your phone system is, you can build that in a certain way so you know that it's a client. Okay, so that's what I did. After 8 o'clock, I answered the phone, and I got the occasional 2 a.m. call. And I set them for an appointment the very next day, because that's what a crisis call is. It's not that we solved their problems at that time. It's that we set them an appointment. So I did that. I was willing to do that. But for the most part, my schedulers and billers were there by 8 a.m. and they worked, from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11 to 12. They usually ate at their desk, but they had 30-minute lunch break. Then you got 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and sometimes even to 6 or 7 o'clock. So they could be technically in the building about 11 hours. You can't work somebody to death like that. So they might be working 3 or 4 days on and 2 to 3 days off, depending on how you want to work the schedule. If you don't do it that way, then you need a morning shift and an evening shift. So you're looking basically at from 8 o'clock to 9 to 10, 11 to 12 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And then you have a part-timer that comes in at 4 and does a good handoff. And you've got from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, you got basically a 3-hour part-timer. You can do it that way if you want. However you do it is up to you. But the bottom line is W-2, roughly $10, $12, then $15 an hour is kind of how I set their pay. Always salary. It wasn't hourly. I paid them whether they came to work or not. If they were sick or not, I paid them anyways on a salary. It's just easier to do that. I don't have to really manage anything. Now, let's talk about the therapist. Some therapists will be extremely uncomfortable if they are not on a salary. That means they want 50 grand starting. Now, I always did the math with them. I always explained to them basically how that worked. And here's what it looks like. I'd say, all right, Mrs. Jones, I've enjoyed doing the basic interview with you today and want to talk a little bit about pay. I'm just curious about how much money are you looking to make as a new LPC or as a new social worker or as a psychologist or as a psychological examiner, whatever the situation may be. And they always had this number in their head. If they don't give you a number and they don't know, that's unusual. But let's say, for example, they didn't know, then you just tell them what you're going to pay them. That's easy, and that's what they'll settle for. But let's say they say, well, Mr. Robinson, I'm really hoping that I need 50,000. I need 50,000. And I said, 50,000 starting? They're like, yes, 50,000 starting. And I said, okay, if I paid you $50,000 starting, you'd be the least paid person in the building with a master's degree. And then I'm quiet. I go, what? What'd you say? So, well, none of my therapists make 50,000. They all make more than 50,000. I'm going to show you how to make more than 50,000. Unless you just set on 50,000, would you like to make more than 50,000? And they're always like, yeah, absolutely. Show me how to do that. So I kind of tricked them a little bit. When I say tricked them, I kind of put out some bait and I led them to me rather than giving them the amount and the situation, because they don't always like the situation. So here's what I tell them. I said, look, if you want to make $50,000, then the real key piece is you have to bring in more than $50,000 for me to value you at that level. And I'm going to show you how that works out. Get out your calculator. Whenever I tell you guys, by the way, to get out your calculator, pause the video and go get your stinking calculator. Just do that, right? So you got your calculator in your hand. I said, all right, the average appointment's going to be $100. Put that in there. And they type it in, $100. I said, I assume that you're going to probably work 40 hours a week. Does that sound about right? By the way, nobody works 40. It's always about 30, 35. We'll negotiate that later. But I said, just put 40 hours in. So they got 100. And they multiply that times 40, right? If your math is pretty good, that's 4 with 3 zeros, right? So you're looking at $4 grand, right? That's not too bad. That's pretty good revenue. Then we're going to work you for 50 hours a week because I think you should take 2 weeks of vacation. Multiply that number times 50. All right? And then they look at that massive number. By the way, what number did you come up with? $100 per hour times 40 hours, right? Times 50 weeks. What number did you come up with? It's a big stinking number, right? And then I say, now here's the thing is that most of my therapists are on a split. So the more they work, the more money they make. It has nothing to do with my promotion schedule. They get to choose how many hours that they work and what the value of their hour is. And I start everybody at 50%. I'm going to give you 50% of the revenue that's coming in. So what I want you to do is, you know that big number that you just put in? If you erased it, here it is again, $100 times 40 hours times 50 weeks. There's your number. Now, divide by 2, because I want 50%, you're going to use 50%. The 50% you get to keep pays your bills. The 50% that I keep is going to pay our lights, it's going to pay our rent, it's going to pay for all of your training, it's going to pay for our insurance, it's going to pay for all of the things that you need. And by the way, I insured not just general liability, but professional liability. I insured my own providers so that if they ever got sued for anything, I had an insurance to cover us. And they'd be like, wow, okay, that's still a ton of money. And I'm like, yeah, would you rather make 50 grand a year or would you rather make that number? And I'm quiet and I wait. I'm like, well, I'd like to make that number. I said, okay, well, here's how we do it. We set you up on a split. Now, in the beginning, you're not going to make very much money. So again, let's say you have one client, you do one appointment, and that's all you have, and it's a $100 appointment, you get 50% of that. You just made $50 for 1 hour. And they're like, yeah, I can't pay my bills on $50. I said, well, that makes sense. Neither can I. I said, so what I need to do is I need to have a way to get a lot of clients in here through my search engine optimization, through my networking, through my marketing, so that I can quickly fill you up. And sometimes that's going to take me a week or two. So what I want you to do is I want you to schedule evening hours to start with, and let's fill those up first. Because that's when people are available, right? People work till 5 o'clock. So I want them there at 6, at 7, and in some cases even at 8 o'clock, and they're done by 9 o'clock at night. Now, not everybody wants to work that late. Most people want to work 9 to 5. And they say, well, hey, I don't really want to work the daytime. I said, well, I can get you some daytime clients. But let's go ahead and open up 2 of those hours. So I hit them with the 6, 7, and 8 o'clock hour, and they get done by 9. And then I back that up, and I said, well, I need you to give me a 5 o'clock and a 6 o'clock for sure. You're done by 7 o'clock. And they're like, okay, that makes sense. And let's go ahead and put a 4 o'clock on there. So I say, you're going to work from 4 o'clock to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. That's 4 hours. We're just going to start you there for just a week or 2, and I'm going to see how fast I can fill you up. What other hours would you like to work? Would you like to sleep in the morning? Or do you want to be here at 8? There's a market for people that will come in for a therapy appointment before work. But most people would rather just sleep in. I said, what would you like to do? Well, I mean, I'm happy working till 6, even 7 o'clock at night. So let's back that up by about 4 hours. I'm like, all right. So now what are we looking at? We're looking at mostly at afternoon hours, where a lot of people are willing to come in the afternoon and some are willing to come in the morning. The dead time really is the 1 o'clock and the 2 o'clock appointment. It's hard to fill those hours. But you still have to do notes and things. So I'd sell them on the idea. And then I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, let's set a goal that we get you 25 hours per week, right? If you work 5 days a week, 5 times 5 is 25. Let's set up 5 appointment hours. And that's how I would get them. And you got a lot of free time in the morning. You got some work in the afternoon, and you got Saturday and Sunday off, unless you want to give me a Saturday. If you want to give me a Saturday, we can do you could take Monday off and get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You got to have 5 days, 5 appointments, that's 25. Well, you want to do that. And we kind of work through those things. They realize pretty quickly they're making a ton of money and not working a lot of hours. Guess what the problem is? As a business owner, you'll get stuck. I'm making a ton of money, only working 25, 30 hours a week. Well, they keep their own mental health pretty good doing that. Like, I want them to work 40 hours. There's a few that will work 40, but most 25 to 30 hours. All right. So then they're on a split. And here's the great thing about a split. When they're here, they're making money for you and for themselves, and you don't have to come out of pocket to pay them. Your reimbursement rate and your cash pay rate is paying their payroll every month. That makes sense. Here's what I do if they refuse the split. They don't want to do a commission. They say, oh, I don't think I can do 50%. And I'm like, well, do you want to make the big money or do you want to stay at the $50,000 mark? Well, like, I don't know. Well, I got to have at least 50,000 to start. It's got to be a guaranteed 50,000. All right, well, here's the deal. We're going to put you on a draw. And then I explained to them that the draw is you're going to owe us the money that we pay you. And for the first 2 years, you're going to make 50,000 and you can't go up past the first 2 years. After the first 2 years, we're going to give you a raise. I'm now making a ton of money. I'm making, 70% or 60 to 70% easily by paying them to 50 and then giving them a small raise increment. It's just not a good way for them to do business. They see everybody else making a ton of money and they say, Curtis, can I please switch to the commission? I'd rather do the commission. Yes, you can. So that's how I work those W-2 therapists. I work them on a split. It's the easiest way to manage your cash flow. The thing that I'll tell you about the last one, the 1099s, you only want them in the office when they are working. You don't want to set them up on a split necessarily early on. They won't make very much money and they won't be in the office very often. You want to go ahead and pay them a chunk. So I'm giving them like 70% for between 65 and 70% just starting off. And they only come in when they have an appointment and they get to pick those hours. And I ask for 2 hours, then 3, then 4. And as I build clients, I call them up. Hey, can you give me another hour? Yes, I can. Can you give me another hour? Yes, I can. And then we build the schedule according to when they're available. And then they maybe are making enough money with me that they don't need to work at the hospital anymore. And I get the full 8-hour day. But that takes a long time to build. We'll talk more about that another day. But then when it comes to the 1099, taxes are very different between W-2 and 1099. I don't have to collect even a dime for taxes for the 1099s. They do that. So I am paying them more money, but I'm also not paying them a payroll tax. That's 7%. That's pretty huge. And it's ultimately, I keep 7% of their pay and I pay 7%. It's 14%. That's a lot of their payroll that I got to account for. So those 1099s, they come and go and I've got no real authority over them. They're a hired gun. They're just there when they are. Those are the special cases, psychiatrists and nurse practitioners. But again, W-2 and split for the therapist, and then W-2 and salary for the billing and scheduling people. Guys, I hope this has been helpful. We're about 17 minutes into this. I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly, but you're going to have questions of me. You should have questions of me. What happens if they won't accept the commission? What happens if they won't accept the $10 an hour training rate? What happens if you get them to $15 and they're insisting on another raise and so on and so forth? What happens if your 1099 people suddenly decide they want to go to W-2 for some reason, or they want to have a different kind of split with you, or they want to do a salary? What do you do? It's really just math, and I can help you navigate all those things. But what you guys have to understand is about 50 to 75% of the information you should be getting from the videos. If you haven't been watching the videos, shame on you. This is like probably the 5th video that I've put out in sequential order. You guys should have watched those other 4 or 5 videos. You guys should be aware of what I'm talking about, and you should start to see value in what I'm giving you. I'm giving you these initial videos at no charge. You should be writing down questions and calling me. Yes, of course, I'm now charging you to talk on the phone. Yes, I'm charging you to Zoom conference or meet me in person. That's what a personal coach does. Again, by the way, I've also been certified as a personal trainer. The personal trainer doesn't make $5 or $10 an hour. You know, it's expensive to have a personal trainer working with you on your physical fitness. It's the same thing in business, guys. I am essentially your executive coach. I am coaching you on how to run your business. And my promise to you at this point is that I provide value, or you don't call me. If you don't want to call me, we've done something wrong. I have no longer provided enough value to really justify you paying me anything. So just watch the videos and maybe you get enough out of the videos and maybe that's enough for you. But I've been in this business long enough, and I know that the best CEOs have a mentor. The best therapists have a supervisor. The best psychologists and psychiatrists, right? They have somebody that they can go to and they can get some information. Well, this is a weird situation. What do I do? I want to be that guy for you. It does take some of my time. I think my rate is reasonable and affordable, but in the end, you have to decide, am I providing the value that you need? And if I am, you'll keep coming. If I'm not, there's not going to be a contract that's going to keep you calling me, right? What I am going to offer is a contract if you guys like, so that we can plan and schedule these discussions. But ultimately, it's going to be how many sessions do you want with me for how long? That's how the contract is going to work. Okay, all of that being said, I hope that you got a good feel for W-2 1099, and then for billing and scheduling people who are in one category, therapists who are in one category, and your hired guns. These are your med managers, typically your site nurses and your psychiatrists. Guys, I hope this has been helpful. Be sure to like and share on your social media channels. That helps me. And then go on my YouTube channel. You guys, if you're going directly to YouTube, then you can also still share this on social media, but go on YouTube and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed by now, I mean, what have I got to do to get you guys to subscribe? And then get the notifications. If you're not getting the notifications, how do you know when I'm putting on a live? A YouTube live is extremely valuable. I'll have other people who are experts in the field talking with me about these things. Guys, keep me on speed dial. Be sure to do your part. Do the homework. Call me when you need me. I'm available by phone. I'm also available by Zoom and by Google Meet. Take care. Peace.